You ever get that feeling like you want to innovate, but it's like
Yeah.
you're stuck, like weighed down by the old ways of doing things? Well, that's what we're diving into today. A story about breaking free. We're going behind the scenes at ING Bank.
ING Bank.
Yeah, they decided to make a big change, a radical shift towards agility. And get this, they weren't failing. It wasn't a last resort.
Right.
They just knew they had to evolve to stay ahead. And we've got this amazing interview with two ING execs. They were right in the thick of it, leading this whole transformation.
It is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, they recognized how customer behavior was changing. Think about it. People were getting used to this whole seamless digital experience. With companies like Spotify, Netflix, everything on demand, instant.
Oh,
And traditional banking just couldn't keep up.
totally. It's like you're used to streaming any song you can think of,
Mm.
right there, instantly. And then you have to wait days for your bank to process a simple transfer. It's like, come on.
Abs.
ING realized they had to close that gap. And it wasn't just about, adding a new feature to their app or something. It was about a complete overhaul.
A fundamental shift.
Exactly.
They went all in on this idea of becoming agile. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot. But let's be clear about what it meant for ING.
Yeah, let's break it down.
It was about breaking down silos.
Silo.
Those walls that prevent different departments from working together.
Right.
Instead of waiting for decisions to trickle down from the top, they empowered their employees, gave them ownership to make things happen faster.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture here. But how do you actually do that?
Mhm.
Do they just get rid of all the departments and say, figure it out?
Well, not exactly. They restructured into these cross-functional teams. They called them squads.
Squads, okay.
Yeah, like a mini company within the bank. You've got people from IT, marketing, product development, all working together,
Right.
laser focused on a specific part of the customer journey.
So let's say a squad is focused on improving the mobile banking app. You'd have designers, developers, customer service reps, all in one team.
Exactly, all in one room. So they're not just throwing ideas over a wall and hoping for the best, they're collaborating in real time.
Got it. Makes sense.
Mm.
But ING is huge. How did they make sure all these squads were moving in the right direction? Did they even still have managers?
They did, but they had to rethink that whole organizational structure, moving away from those traditional hierarchies, the ones based on seniority.
Right.
And they moved towards a flatter structure, one focused on expertise and collaboration.
So less about who's the boss and more about who has the right skills.
Exactly.
I like that.
And here's the thing, this wasn't just some nice idea they had. ING actually looked outside of banking for inspiration.
Really?
Yeah, they studied companies known for their agile cultures. Companies like Google, Spotify, Netflix, they really dug deep into what made these companies tick.
Hold on. So a centuries-old bank, is taking cues from tech giants.
Yep.
That's pretty humbling. What did they learn?
One big takeaway was the importance of continuous delivery. Instead of these big product launches every few months, they aimed for smaller updates, like every 2 weeks.
Wow, that's a huge shift.
It was. And it was made possible by adopting DevOps practices.
Okay, hold on, DevOps. That sounds technical.
It's like, imagine a well-coordinated relay team. Instead of a bunch of runners going solo, it's about breaking down the barriers between software development and IT operations so they can work together seamlessly.
So for ING, this meant they could roll out new features and improvements way faster.
Exactly. It's about being nimble, responsive, constantly iterating based on customer feedback. But here's the key. ING didn't just copy and paste what worked for Google or Spotify.
Right.
They took those inspirations and they made them their own.
It's like taking a recipe but putting your own spin on it.
Exactly.
You might use the same basic ingredients but adjust the flavors
I like that analogy.
to create something unique.
And one way they adjusted the flavors was by adopting this thing called the quarterly business review.
Quarterly business review.
Yeah, they borrowed it from Google and Netflix.
I've heard of those, but I'll be honest, I don't fully get them.
It sounds very corporate-y.
It does.
It's basically a way for teams to regularly share their progress, learnings, challenges, with the rest of the organization, so
Right.
everyone stays aligned.
So instead of teams working in isolation, they're coming together to share what's working, what's not,
Yes,
and learn from each other.
exactly.
That's smart.
It fosters transparency, breaks down barriers, helps spread knowledge throughout the company.
Okay.
But it went beyond just processes and structures. They even changed how they hired people.
Hiring. That's interesting. Hiring, that's a really interesting point. Did they start making everyone pass a tech quiz before they could join the mailroom?
Wouldn't that be something? No, they took inspiration from another company known for its culture.
Zappos.
Zappos. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the online shoe retailer. Yeah, famous for putting their employees first.
Yeah.
ING implemented this 3-week onboarding process, and every single new employee, no matter what their role was, how senior they were, spent a full week answering customer calls at their call center.
Wow. Everyone. Even
Everyone!
like the executive.
Especially the executives.
Wow.
They wanted everyone to understand the customer experience firsthand.
That's a powerful message. It's like saying, we're all in this together, and the customer is at the heart of it all.
Exactly. It's about breaking down those hierarchies, building empathy from day one. But
Yeah.
the big question, did it actually work?
Right. Because changing how you work is one thing. But did ING see real results from this?
They did. According to these executives we're hearing from, ING saw big improvements in several key areas. First, their time to market, how quickly they could get new products and features to customers. That improved drastically. They went from a few major releases a year to pushing out updates every 2 weeks.
Wow, that's huge, especially in the fast-paced world of digital banking. Customers expect constant innovation.
Absolutely. And on top of that, they saw a 15% increase in their net promoter score. That's a key measure of customer satisfaction.
Okay, so happier customers, faster pace of innovation. Those are some pretty compelling results.
Hmm.
What about the impact on employees? Did this change make for a better work environment?
It seems like it. ING reported a significant jump in employee engagement scores, giving employees more ownership, more autonomy, the chance to collaborate. It seems like that had a really positive impact on morale and job satisfaction.
That makes sense, right? People want to feel valued. They want to be challenged. They want to be part of something bigger.
Exactly. But it wasn't all easy. Transforming a company as large and as established as ING, it comes with challenges.
I can imagine. What were some of the hurdles they ran into?
One of the biggest ones was making sure all these newly empowered autonomous squads didn't lose sight of the bigger picture. They had to be careful that teams didn't get so focused on their specific tasks that they lost track of ING's overall strategic goals.
It's like that saying, too many cooks in the kitchen. You can have the most talented people, but if they're not all working towards the same goal, it could be a mess.
Exactly. And ING recognized that risk. One way they addressed it was through those quarterly business reviews we talked about earlier. Those reviews were a way to bring everyone together, not just to share progress, but to make sure everyone was still aligned on the overall strategy.
Okay, so it was a way to keep all those individual squads moving in the same direction,
Yes.
like a fleet of ships all navigating by the same compass.
Exactly. But even with a compass, you can still hit a storm.
That's true.
And for ING, one of those storms was this potential for what they called incremental innovation.
Incremental innovation, what is that?
It's the risk of getting so good at making small iterative improvements that you kind of forget to think big. You forget to challenge the status quo.
So instead of coming up with groundbreaking new products or services, they were just making tiny tweaks to what they already had.
Kind of, yeah. And it's understandable. When you're constantly pushing out updates every 2 weeks, it's easy to get caught in that cycle of just making small improvements. But to stay truly competitive, ING knew they had to balance agility with big picture thinking
Right.
and a willingness to disrupt themselves.
It's like they had to find that balance,
Yeah.
between making steady progress, but also taking those big leaps forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a balancing act. And it's something a lot of organizations struggle with, not just in banking, but everywhere.
Yeah, it's easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day
Yeah,
and lose sight of those big, ambitious goals.
exactly. It takes real effort from leadership to keep both perspectives in play. The short-term wins, but also that long-term vision.
So it sounds like this ING transformation, it was about way more than just reorganizing some departments or trying a new project management method.
It really was. It was a full-on cultural shift, and
Yeah.
it required buy-in from everyone, from the top down.
That's huge. So what can we learn from all of this? What are the takeaways from ING's experience?
Well, I think it shows that even big established companies, they can embrace this idea of agility. They can transform and become more responsive to customers and to the market.
It's kind of inspiring, right? It proves that you can break free from those old bureaucratic ways of working.
It is, and it highlights how crucial leadership is in driving change. ING's leaders didn't just talk about agility, they lived it.
Right.
They challenged the status quo, they empowered their employees, they even spent a week answering customer calls themselves.
That says a lot.
Right.
It's one thing to give speeches about agility. It's another to actually roll up your sleeves and do it.
Exactly. And ING's experience also shows the value of looking outside your own bubble. Don't just study what your competitors are doing. Look at other industries, tech giants, startups. Be open to new ideas and best practices.
It's that humility to say, we don't have all the answers. Let's see what we can learn.
Exactly. And they didn't just copy what others were doing, they took inspiration and adapted it, made it their own.
They found their own recipe for success. So for anyone listening who's feeling stuck, or maybe overwhelmed by this idea of transformation, what would you say to them?
I'd say you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look around, see what's working for others, and figure out how you can make those ideas your own. Don't be afraid to experiment, to take some risks, and to learn from your mistakes. That's how you'll find what works best for you.
That's so important.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
There's no magic formula.
ING's story is just one example.
It's about taking those insights, those nuggets of wisdom, and using them to chart your own course.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into ING's transformation, I'm feeling optimistic. It's a good reminder that change is possible, even for these huge companies.
It is. It's encouraging.
It's a call to action for all of us, to be more agile, to challenge the status quo, to never stop learning and evolving.
Because in today's world, being able to adapt and innovate, it's not optional anymore. It's essential.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we'll leave you to continue your own deep dive into the world of agility. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the limits of what's possible